Have you ever noticed how the conversation around masculinity seems to be shifting? In a world that often celebrates quick fixes and surface-level success, there's a quiet but powerful movement happening. One where strength isn't about being the loudest in the room, but about being the most grounded. Real strength isn't just physical or financial. It's something far deeper, something built from within. And what if I told you that an ancient philosophy, one practiced by Roman emperors, thinkers, and leaders for centuries, holds the key to cultivating that kind of unshakable character today? That philosophy is Stoicism, and it's not about suppressing emotion or being cold and detached. It's about mastering your mind, taking responsibility for what you can control, and facing life's challenges with clarity and courage. This video is going to walk you through 25 subtle signs that you're developing true Stoic masculinity in your everyday life. These aren't dramatic, outward displays of power. They're quiet shifts in how you think, how you react, and how you carry yourself. They're the small, almost invisible changes that add up to a life of purpose, resilience, and genuine confidence. Whether you're new to Stoicism or you've been practicing for years, these signs will help you recognize your progress and understand what it truly means to embody this timeless way of living. Think about the last time you faced a difficult situation. Maybe it was a setback at work, a personal conflict, or just one of those days where everything seems to go wrong. How did you respond? Did you react impulsively, or did you pause and choose your next move with intention? That moment of pause, that ability to step back and see the bigger picture, that's one of the first signs we're going to explore. And it's just the beginning. By the end of this video, you'll not only recognize these traits in yourself, but also understand how to deepen them, turning daily challenges into opportunities for growth. This isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming the strongest, most grounded version of who you already are. So let's begin. The first and perhaps most profound sign you're cultivating this strength is a noticeable shift in how you handle emotional turmoil. You no longer meet a crisis with an equal or greater storm of your own reaction. This isn't about becoming emotionless or cold. That's a common misconception about Stoicism. Instead, it's about developing a deep-seated emotional equanimity. Picture a disagreement with your partner. The old you might have immediately gotten defensive, raised your voice, or stormed out, allowing that initial flash of anger to dictate your actions. But now you feel that same heat rise, yet you pause. You take a deliberate breath. You recognize the emotion is there, but you understand it is not you, and it does not have to be in the driver's seat. This moment of space between the trigger and your response is where true Stoic masculinity is forged. You're not suppressing the feeling, you're acknowledging its presence while consciously choosing not to be ruled by it. This allows you to address the actual issue at hand, the misunderstanding, the hurt feeling, rather than just reacting to the loudest emotion in the room. Consider a high-pressure situation at work, like receiving harsh, perhaps even unfair, criticism from your boss in a team meeting. The instinct might be to immediately rebut, to defend your pride, to let humiliation and anger color your reply. A person developing Stoic resilience, however, would feel that sting of embarrassment but would not let it consume them. They would listen fully, process the feedback, separating the useful nuggets from the unproductive delivery, and respond with a measured, "Thank you for the feedback. I'll review the project and have a more constructive discussion with you this afternoon." This calm, collected response isn't weakness, it's immense power. It demonstrates control over your internal state, which in turn gives you control over the external outcome. You become the calm in the center of the storm, and people naturally begin to look to you for stability and clear-headed leadership. This emotional equanimity becomes your greatest asset, turning potential conflicts into opportunities for demonstration of your character. And that leads us directly to the second sign, a profound and practical acceptance of what simply cannot be changed. This is the heart of the Stoic dichotomy of control, a concept that sounds simple in theory but is utterly transformative in practice. You find yourself instinctively beginning to sort the events of your life into two distinct categories: the things you have power over and the things you do not. Your own actions, your judgments, your values, your effort, these are your domain. But the traffic jam that makes you late, the rain that cancels your plans, the offhand comment a colleague made, or the final outcome of a huge project, these are not yours to command. The development of Stoic masculinity is visible in the mental shift that occurs when you encounter something in that second category. The frustration doesn't vanish, but it's immediately met with a new, quiet voice that says, "This is outside my control. My energy is better spent elsewhere." Think about the last time you were stuck in completely standstill traffic. The old pattern might have involved gripping the steering wheel, cursing, constantly checking the clock, and letting the anxiety and anger boil over. You're wasting precious mental energy fighting a reality that your frustration cannot alter. Now contrast that with the new response. You see the brake lights ahead, you acknowledge the delay and the potential inconvenience, but you don't declare war on it. You might take a deep breath, put on a podcast you've been meaning to listen to, or use the unexpected pause to collect your thoughts. You haven't given up, you've simply redirected your effort from the uncontrollable external event to your entirely controllable internal response. This is not passive resignation, it's an active, strategic choice to conserve your power for the battles you can actually win. This practice extends far beyond traffic into the most challenging areas of life. Consider other people's opinions of you. The desire for approval and the fear of criticism are deeply wired into us, but the man embracing Stoic principles understands that while he can act with integrity and kindness, he cannot force anyone to think well of him. That recognition is incredibly liberating. You start to base your self-worth on your own character and effort, not on the ever-changing and often fickle opinions of others. You can receive a compliment without letting it define you, and you can receive criticism without letting it destroy you. Your emotional stability is no longer hitched to external validation, which makes you far more resilient and, ironically, often more respected. People sense that you are grounded in something unshakable. This acceptance is the foundation of mental freedom. It's the deliberate act of unplugging your emotions from the chaos of the outside world and plugging them into the stable power source of your own reasoned choice. This dedication to a purposeful start is the third unmistakable sign. While the world is still hitting the snooze button, you are already up and investing in the one thing you have complete command over, the first hour of your day. This isn't about a rigid, joyless checklist, it's about a ritual of self-ownership. The ancient Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, were fervent advocates of this practice. He didn't just think about these principles, he lived them, and he began each day by mentally preparing for the challenges ahead. In his personal writings, now known as meditations, he didn't write for an audience, he wrote to himself, reaffirming his core values. He would remind himself of what to expect from the day, that he would likely encounter annoying, ungrateful, and arrogant people, and he would steel his mind not to be surprised or disturbed by them, but to meet them with understanding and his own unwavering virtue. Your modern version of this might look like 20 minutes of meditation, not to empty your mind, but to observe your thoughts without judgment and center yourself before the external world makes its demands. It might be a session of journaling where you do what the Stoics called a premeditation of evils, of visualizing potential obstacles you could face that day and mentally rehearsing how you would handle them with calm and principle. This isn't negative thinking, it's strategic inoculation. By anticipating difficulties in the calm of the morning, you rob them of their power to shock you in the heat of the moment. Or perhaps your ritual is physical, a run, weightlifting, or yoga, because a Stoic understands the profound connection between a disciplined body and a disciplined mind. The physical discomfort you voluntarily embrace at 5 a.m. makes the minor irritations of the workday feel trivial by comparison. The power of this routine lies in its compound effect. That single, quiet hour spent in reflection, planning, and self-improvement sets a tone of intentionality that reverberates through the entire day. You have already taken action on your own terms before anyone else can make a claim on your time and attention. You've already asserted control. This creates a momentum of discipline that makes it easier to choose the healthy lunch over the fast food, to focus deeply on your work instead of scrolling mindlessly, and to respond to your family with presence and patience in the evening because you haven't already expended all your mental energy reacting to the day's chaos. The morning ritual is the anchor that keeps you steady, ensuring that no matter how strong the current of outside events becomes, you are never truly swept away. Now, here's a sign that truly separates the modern Stoic from mere philosophical curiosity. You voluntarily and consistently seek out small doses of discomfort. This isn't about masochism or punishing yourself. It's a form of strategic training for the soul. The ancient Stoics called this practice ascesis, a disciplined exercise to strengthen your character. The core idea is brilliant in its simplicity. By willingly embracing minor hardships in a controlled setting, you build an incredible resilience that protects you when real, unexpected hardships inevitably hit. You are essentially vaccinating your mind against future adversity. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, despite having access to every luxury imaginable, would intentionally sleep on a simple bed on the floor and eat plain, modest food. He wasn't doing this to prove a point to others. He was doing it to prove a point to himself, that his comfort and happiness were not dependent on external conditions. He was reminding himself that he could endure and even thrive with very little. Think of it like a mental and emotional muscle. If you never lift anything heavier than a teacup, your arms will be woefully unprepared the day you need to move a piece of furniture. Your resilience is the same. If your life is a constant pursuit of the perfect temperature, the most gourmet meal, and the most comfortable chair, the first time you face a cold room, a boring meal, or a hard seat, it will feel like a monumental crisis. But if you've trained, a little cold or a little hunger is nothing. A powerful modern example is the cold shower. That initial shock of cold water is a pure, unfiltered moment of discomfort. Your entire body screams to get out, to return to the warmth. But when you consciously choose to stay, to breathe through the initial shock, you are having a direct conversation with your primal aversion to hardship. You are telling your own nervous system, I see the discomfort, I feel it, but I am choosing this, I am in charge here. This small daily victory builds a deep, nonverbal confidence that you can handle difficult sensations and emotions. This practice extends far beyond the shower. It might be choosing to walk instead of drive for a short errand, even when the weather isn't perfect. It could be fasting for a 16-hour window, not for a trendy diet, but to remind yourself that you are not a slave to your stomach's every grumble. It might be spending a Saturday afternoon in silence, disconnected from all your devices, to confront the boredom and restlessness head-on and rediscover the resource of your own thoughts. Each of these small acts is a deposit into your resilience bank account. Then, when life delivers an unavoidable hardship, a financial setback, a professional rejection, a personal loss, you don't shatter. You have a deep, embodied knowing that you have faced difficulty before by choice and come out stronger. You've already proven to yourself that you can endure far more than you thought, and that knowledge becomes an unshakable pillar of your character. You stop fearing discomfort and start seeing it as a necessary and even valuable teacher. This practice of embracing discomfort builds a powerful foundation for the fifth sign, which is perhaps one of the most visible markers of Stoic development in daily life. You begin to respond mindfully instead of merely reacting. There is a critical space between something happening and you taking action, and the Stoic man learns to not just recognize this gap but to live within it. This is where your power truly resides. It's not that the initial, raw impulse disappears. The flash of anger at a disrespectful comment, the surge of defensiveness when you're criticized, the pang of jealousy. But that impulse no longer gets to write the next line in the story. You become the author, not the character being tossed around by every plot twist. Imagine a common workplace scenario. A colleague publicly takes credit for an idea you developed during a team meeting. The immediate reptilian brain reaction is one of white-hot betrayal. The old script might have involved interrupting them, making a sarcastic comment, or sending a passive-aggressive email afterward to stake your claim. This is pure reaction. It's driven by emotion and often makes the situation worse, damaging professional relationships and your own reputation. The Stoic approach, however, utilizes that crucial pause. You feel the heat rise to your face, but you take a deliberate breath. In that moment of silence, you ask yourself a few quick but vital questions. What is within my control here? I cannot control their actions or their lack of integrity. I can only control my response. What is the most virtuous and effective way to handle this that aligns with my character? This isn't about being a pushover, it's about being strategic and principled. Your response might be to wait until after the meeting and have a private, calm conversation with that colleague. I noticed you presented the project framework we discussed. I'm glad you found it valuable. For the sake of clarity on future collaborations, I'd appreciate it if we could present our joint contributions together. This approach addresses the issue directly, asserts your value, and does so without creating public drama. It demonstrates strength under control. Now bring this into a more personal setting, like a relationship. Your partner makes a frustrated remark about you forgetting to do a chore you promised to handle. The reactive path is to immediately get defensive, to list all the things you did do, to escalate the tension into a full-blown argument about who contributes more. This is impulse driving the car. The mindful response cultivated through Stoic practice is to again hit the pause button. You notice the defensive urge rise up, but you choose to listen first. You might say, "It sounds like you're feeling frustrated because this was important to you and I didn't follow through. That's my mistake." This doesn't mean you're accepting blame for everything. It means you're responding to the underlying emotion and the broken commitment rather than reacting to the tone of the comment. You address the real issue, the unmet expectation, instead of the noise around it. This de-escalates conflict instantly and builds trust and respect. It shows that you're more invested in the health of the relationship than you are in winning a petty squabble. This ability to choose virtue over impulse again and again is what forges a reputation for unshakable integrity and composure. People learn that they cannot easily provoke you, that your actions are thoughtful and considered, and that makes you a more effective leader, partner, and man. This sense of mindful composure directly influences a sixth crucial sign of Stoic growth. You find your priorities shifting from seeking fleeting pleasure to the deep, lasting satisfaction that comes from honoring your duties. The Stoics weren't against enjoyment, they were against allowing pleasure to become the master of your decisions. They advocated for a life where your responsibilities to your family, your community, your work, and your own character are placed firmly ahead of mere entertainment. This isn't about living a joyless life of pure obligation. It's about redefining what truly brings fulfillment. You start to discover that the quiet pride of being a reliable man, a man of your word, provides a deeper and more stable sense of well-being than any temporary distraction ever could. Imagine a common modern dilemma. It's Friday evening after a long week. You're tired, and the immediate impulse is to collapse on the couch, order a pizza, and binge a new series. That's the path of least resistance, the call of comfort. But you also told your son you would help him build that model rocket this weekend, and you promised your team you'd have that project report finalized by Monday morning. The old version of you might have procrastinated, deciding the rocket and the report could wait until a tomorrow that always feels more motivated. The Stoic version of you recognizes this as a choice between virtue and vice. It's the choice between what is easy and what is right. So you take a moment, you might even feel the pull of the couch, but you consciously choose to spend the next hour at the table with your son, focusing entirely on him and the project. Afterward, you spend another 45 minutes organizing the data for your report, making Monday morning manageable. Only then, with your key responsibilities honored, do you allow yourself to relax without a nagging sense of guilt in the background. This consistent prioritization has a compound effect on how the world perceives you, and more importantly, how you perceive yourself. At work, you become the go-to person, the one who meets deadlines and follows through. Your boss and colleagues learn that if they give you a task, it will be done and done well. This builds immense professional capital and trust, opening doors to greater responsibility and opportunity. But the real transformation happens at home. Your partner learns they can depend on you. When you say you'll handle the grocery shopping or take the car for an oil change, it gets done. Your children see a father who shows up not just physically but with his attention and energy. They learn integrity by watching you keep your promises, both big and small. This reliability becomes the bedrock of your relationships. People stop having to nag or remind you because your word is your bond. This erases a tremendous amount of low-grade anxiety and conflict from your life, creating a more peaceful and respectful environment. The Stoic rationale for this is profoundly practical. They understood that shirking duty doesn't erase the responsibility, it only amplifies the future stress and consequences. That report you didn't finish on Friday will cause you anxiety all weekend and create a frantic, stressful Monday. The promise you broke to your child damages their trust and your own self-respect. By choosing the minor discomfort of disciplined action now, you buy yourself future freedom and peace. You are essentially paying a small price today to avoid a much larger debt of stress, regret, and broken trust tomorrow. This practice of duty first is the ultimate application of focusing on what you can control. You cannot control how your boss will react, but you can control your preparedness. You cannot control your child's happiness, but you can control your presence and reliability. By focusing your effort on your own actions and obligations, you build a life of impeccable character that is resistant to the chaos of external events. The man who does what needs to be done when it needs to be done is a man who owns his life completely. The seventh sign, one that can fundamentally rewire your entire outlook on life, is the consistent practice of genuine gratitude. This goes far beyond simply saying thank you or listing a few good things before bed. Stoic gratitude is an active, almost philosophical exercise designed to shatter our innate tendency toward taking our blessings for granted. The core technique is a practice the ancient Stoics called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. It sounds dark, but its purpose is profoundly positive. It involves intentionally and vividly imagining the loss of the things and people you currently have in your life. You don't do this to dwell on sadness, but to jolt your perspective into a powerful state of appreciation for the present moment. It's about mentally visiting a world where what you have is gone, so that when you return to reality, you see it with fresh, grateful eyes. Consider your morning cup of coffee. It's a routine part of your day, something you barely think about. Now, close your eyes for a moment and truly imagine what it would be like if that were taken away. Imagine you could no longer afford coffee, or a medical condition meant you could never have caffeine again. Imagine the simple pleasure of that warm mug in your hands was just gone. When you open your eyes and see the coffee is still there, the experience is transformed. It's no longer just a caffeine delivery system, it's a gift you've been granted for today. This practice can be applied to everything. Before you kiss your partner goodbye for the day, pause for just a second and viscerally imagine what it would feel like if they weren't there to kiss. Before you complain about your job, seriously contemplate the anxiety and loss of purpose that comes with unemployment. This isn't morbid, it's a vaccination against complacency. It makes you intensely present and aware of the fragile, temporary nature of everything good, which is the very soil in which deep gratitude grows. This mental exercise naturally leads to the physical act of gratitude journaling. A man developing Stoic masculinity doesn't just think these thoughts, he captures them. He might keep a small notebook by his bed, and each evening, he writes down 3 to 5 specific things he is genuinely grateful for from that day. The key is in the specificity. He doesn't write "my family." He writes, "I am grateful for the way my daughter laughed uncontrollably when I pretended to slip on the kitchen floor this evening." He doesn't write "my health." He writes, "I am grateful that my body felt strong and pain-free during my workout this morning, allowing me to push myself." This specificity forces you out of the abstract and into the real, tangible moments that make up a good life. It trains your brain to become a detective, constantly scanning your day not for threats or problems, but for evidence of good fortune, no matter how small. The ultimate result of this dual practice is a monumental shift in your relationship with desire. The modern world is an engine designed to manufacture wants. Advertisements, social media, and even casual conversation constantly point toward what you lack: a newer car, a bigger house, a more prestigious job title. This endless pursuit is a trap. It guarantees you will always feel incomplete because there will always be something else to acquire. Stoic gratitude is the antidote to this poison. By regularly and powerfully reminding yourself of the abundance you already possess, you short-circuit the cycle of comparison and craving. You stop looking at your neighbor's greener grass and start marveling at the fact that you have a lawn at all. This doesn't kill your ambition, it purifies it. You still pursue goals and improvements, but you do it from a place of abundance and strength, not from a place of feeling inadequate or lacking. You work to build a better life because you are grateful for the foundation you already have, not because you hate your current circumstances. This grounded, grateful man is incredibly resilient to life's ups and downs. A financial setback is framed as a challenge, not a catastrophe, because he is still grateful for his skills and his family's health. A professional rejection is disappointing, but it doesn't define him because his self-worth is tied to his character and his blessings, not to a single external outcome. He has found a source of contentment that is entirely internal and unassailable by outside forces. This clarity in your values leads to the 8th unmistakable sign of Stoic growth. You begin to operate from a clear, non-negotiable hierarchy of your core principles. Your life is no longer a series of reactions to whatever feels easiest or most appealing in the moment. It becomes a deliberate expression of a personal constitution you've built for yourself. A man without a defined value system is like a ship without a rudder, tossed in every direction by the waves of social pressure, fleeting emotions, and other people's expectations. He says yes when he wants to say no. He compromises his integrity to avoid awkwardness, and he often finds himself wondering how he ended up in a life that doesn't feel like his own. The Stoic man, by contrast, has done the hard work of figuring out what he stands for. He knows his top 3 to 5 values, things like integrity, responsibility, courage, or wisdom, and he uses them as an unwavering filter for every significant decision he makes. This isn't some abstract philosophical exercise. It shows up in concrete, daily choices. Imagine you're out with a group of friends and the conversation turns to gossip about a mutual acquaintance who isn't present. The path of least resistance, the socially easy thing to do, is to nod along and maybe even add a little fuel to the fire to feel included. But if one of your core values is integrity, which includes speaking well of others in their absence, you're presented with a clear choice. You might simply change the subject, or you could offer a gentle, "You know, I've always found him to be a pretty decent guy," effectively derailing the negativity without creating a confrontation. It feels awkward for a second, but that momentary discomfort is a small price to pay for maintaining alignment with your principles. You leave that interaction with your self-respect fully intact, and that inner victory is far more valuable than any temporary social approval. Now consider a much larger decision, like a potential job offer. The old version of you might have been swayed almost entirely by the salary number. A bigger paycheck is a powerful lure. But the Stoic version, guided by his value hierarchy, conducts a more nuanced analysis. If family is a top value, he asks hard questions. Does this job require 60-hour weeks and constant travel that would pull him away from his children? If so, the high salary might come at too high a cost to something he holds more sacred. If personal growth and mastery are core values, he evaluates whether the role will challenge him and allow him to develop new skills, or if it's just a fancier title for a dead-end position. The decision-making process becomes less about what do I want and more about who do I want to be, and what life does the man I aspire to be actually choose to build. This value-based filtering eliminates a tremendous amount of stress and indecision. When you know your non-negotiables, many options simply fall away, making the right path astonishingly clear. This principled approach transforms you from a passive participant in your own life into its active author. People begin to recognize you as a man of conviction. They might not always agree with your choices, but they will respect them because they can see they aren't arbitrary. They are consistent and reasoned. This consistency builds immense trust, both in your professional and personal life. Your partner knows what to expect from you because your actions are predictably tied to your stated beliefs. Your business associates know you won't cut corners or betray a confidence because your value of integrity won't allow it. This reliability makes you a pillar in your communities. Perhaps most importantly, it allows you to look at yourself in the mirror each night without a hint of regret. You sleep soundly, not because your life is perfect or easy, but because you know that even on the most challenging days, you stayed true to the man you have chosen to become. The ninth sign might be one of the most telling in our hyper-connected world. You discover a genuine and deep comfort with solitude. This is a world away from loneliness. Loneliness is a feeling of lack, a painful sense of isolation, and a craving for external connection. The comfort with solitude that Stoicism cultivates is the exact opposite. It's a feeling of fullness, a conscious choice to be alone with your own thoughts because you become your own most interesting and dependable company. It's the ability to sit in a quiet room without a phone, a screen, or any other distraction, and not feel the anxious need to reach for something to fill the space. This is a superpower in the modern age, a direct result of turning your attention inward and building a rich internal life, which is a central aim of Stoic practice. Think about how most people react to a moment of downtime waiting in line, sitting in a waiting room, or having a quiet evening with no plans. The immediate reflexive action is to pull out a smartphone, to scroll through a feed, to consume content, to broadcast a message. It's a constant seeking of input and validation from the outside. This habit isn't just about boredom, it's often a subtle form of escaping from oneself. The Stoic, however, has learned to see these empty moments not as voids to be filled, but as rare and valuable opportunities. They are pockets of time gifted to you for self-reflection, for simply observing your own mind without an agenda. Instead of reaching for a device, you might take a few deep breaths and observe the rhythm of your breathing. You might mentally review your morning, asking yourself simple but powerful questions. Did I live up to my values in my interactions today? Where did I act with virtue and where did I fall short? What is one thing I could do better tomorrow? This isn't about self-criticism. It's about calm, objective self-auditing, the same way a skilled craftsman might calmly assess his tools at the end of a day's work. The ancient Stoics were fierce advocates for this practice. Seneca, in his letters, constantly urged his friend Lucilius to withdraw into himself, to spend time in his own company. He argued that a man who is a stranger to himself will inevitably be a stranger to others, and his relationships will be shallow because they are built on a shaky foundation. How can you truly know and connect with another person if you are perpetually avoiding getting to know yourself? Marcus Aurelius, despite the immense demands of leading an empire, carved out sacred space for his own solitude. His private journal, which we now know as Meditations, is the ultimate testament to this practice. It wasn't written for publication. It was his personal gymnasium for the mind, a place where he could retreat from the chaos of the palace and the Senate to reinforce his principles, challenge his own faulty judgments, and strengthen his resolve. He used solitude not to escape his duties, but to return to them with greater clarity, patience, and strength. This comfort with being alone transforms how you engage with the world when you are with others. Because you are no longer dependent on social interactions to feel complete or validated, you can engage from a place of genuine choice and abundance. You attend a social gathering not because you're afraid of being alone on a Saturday night, but because you actively want to connect and share your energy. This shift is palpable. You become a better listener because you're not just waiting for your turn to talk to prove your worth. You become more selective with your time and relationships, gravitating towards deep, meaningful connections and gracefully avoiding draining or superficial ones. You stop fearing missing out because you are truly content with what you have and where you are. This self-sufficiency makes you more attractive and respected, as people are naturally drawn to those who are grounded and complete within themselves. Your presence becomes a gift you choose to give, not a need you are desperate to have met. The 10th sign that you're embodying Stoic principles is a fundamental shift in your relationship with your own body. You begin to see physical discipline not as a chore or a quest for a certain appearance, but as an essential form of practice for the mind. This is a cornerstone of Stoic masculinity, the understanding that a sound mind truly does require a sound body, not for the sake of vanity, but because physical resilience directly fuels mental clarity and emotional stability. The ancient Stoics were not armchair philosophers. They were men of action who believed that neglecting the body was a form of neglecting one's duty. How can you be expected to face life's great challenges with courage and focus if you are constantly feeling sluggish, weak, or sick? Your physical vessel is the vehicle for your virtue. If it's broken down, your ability to act with excellence in the world is severely compromised. Consider the routine of a morning workout. The modern fitness industry often sells this as a way to get six-pack abs or to achieve a certain look that will attract admiration. The Stoic approach is entirely different. When the alarm goes off at 5 a.m. and every fiber of your being is begging you to stay in your warm bed, the act of getting up and putting on your training shoes is your first victory of the day. It's a small but powerful declaration that your mind is in charge of your body, not the other way around. The discomfort of the cold floor, the heaviness in your limbs, the desire to go back to sleep. These are all minor adversities that you are choosing to overcome voluntarily. The actual workout, whether it's lifting weights, running, or a calisthenics routine, is a concentrated microcosm of Stoic practice. You are intentionally placing your body under a manageable stress, learning to breathe through the burn, to focus your mind on the task at hand despite the screaming of your muscles to stop. This is a direct rehearsal for handling emotional and mental stress. When you learn to push through the final few reps of a difficult set, you are building the exact same mental muscle required to push through a difficult conversation at work or to maintain your composure during a family crisis. History provides us with powerful examples of this principle in action. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, despite the unimaginable burdens of leading an empire through war and plague, maintained a strict physical regimen. He didn't do this to look good in his statues. He did it because he knew his physical endurance was non-negotiable for the mental endurance his role demanded. He needed the stamina to preside over long sessions of court, the strength to travel with his legions, and the resilience to avoid illness. His physical training was a practical necessity for his duty. The Greek philosopher Socrates, a major influence on the Stoics, was also famously robust. known for his ability to march barefoot through ice and snow alongside soldiers and outdrink anyone without losing his famous wit. His physical hardness was a testament to his belief that philosophy wasn't just about thinking great thoughts, but about living a life capable of executing them. In our modern context, this translates to a consistent and mindful approach to health. It means you choose nutritious food not because you're on a temporary diet, but because you understand that a greasy meal will cloud your thinking and drain your energy for hours afterward. You prioritize sleep not as a luxury, but as a non-negotiable recovery tool that directly impacts your mood, your focus, and your ability to regulate your emotions. You might take a walk during your lunch break not just to move your body, but to clear your head and gain a new perspective on a problem you've been wrestling with all morning. This holistic view transforms health from a superficial goal into a continuous practice of self-respect. You are maintaining your primary tool, your body, so that it is sharp, reliable, and ready to serve your purpose. The disciplined man isn't fighting against his body. He is partnering with it, using physical training as the daily grindstone that keeps his willpower sharp and his mind clear, ensuring he has the foundational strength required to live a life of purpose and principle. The 11th sign, you're developing true Stoic masculinity, is perhaps one of the most liberating in our consumer-driven society. You cultivate a profound sense of financial temperance. This isn't about being miserly or living in poverty. It's about redefining your entire relationship with money, seeing it for what it truly is, a neutral tool, not a goal in itself. The Stoics understood that wealth is a preferred indifferent. It has no inherent moral value. It can be used for great good or great harm. What matters isn't the amount you have, but the character of the person wielding it. A man of virtue with modest means is far wealthier in the ways that count than a man of vice with a vast fortune. Your financial well-being, therefore, becomes a direct reflection of your self-discipline and your values, not your self-worth. This philosophy manifests most clearly in your conscious resistance to lifestyle inflation. Imagine you get a significant raise or a large bonus. The automatic, culturally conditioned response is to immediately upgrade your life, a newer car, a bigger apartment, more expensive hobbies. It's the hedonic treadmill where you run faster and faster just to maintain the same level of fleeting satisfaction. The Stoic approach is different. You feel the excitement of the increased income, but you meet it with a calm, strategic mind. You might decide to save 80% of that raise and allow yourself to enjoy the remaining 20%. You don't move to a more expensive neighborhood just because you can. You ask yourself if it truly aligns with your values of peace, community, and financial security. This isn't deprivation, it's the strategic building of a moat around your peace of mind. By intentionally keeping your fixed expenses low, you create a buffer of financial resilience that protects you from life's inevitable shocks, a job loss, a medical emergency, a market downturn. This freedom from constant financial anxiety is a form of wealth that no amount of luxury goods can ever provide. This frugality is deeply practical. It means you find genuine satisfaction in experiences and relationships that are free or low cost, a hike with a friend, a library book, a home-cooked meal shared with family, rather than relying on expensive purchases to generate happiness. You start to see high-quality, long-lasting items not as more expensive, but as more economical over time. You buy a well-made pair of boots that can be resoled for years instead of cheap ones you'll replace every season. This is the application of wisdom to your wallet. It also means you become highly aware of the hidden costs of ownership. That flashy new sports car doesn't just cost the purchase price. It comes with higher insurance premiums, anxiety about door dings, and the constant temptation to define yourself by a possession. The Stoic man asks, is this purchase serving my life or am I serving it? He chooses possessions that are useful and reliable, avoiding those that become a source of worry or a drain on his attention. This mindful approach naturally extends to investing. Your strategy becomes less about chasing get-rich-quick schemes and more about steady, principled growth aligned with your long-term vision for a life of freedom and purpose. You understand that the most valuable investment you can make is often in yourself, in education, skills, and health, because these are assets that no market crash can take away from you. You avoid debt not as an absolute rule, but with a clear-eyed understanding of its true cost. Debt is essentially trading your future freedom and choices for something you want today. There's a huge difference between strategic debt, like a reasonable mortgage on a home that provides stability for your family, and destructive debt, like high-interest credit cards financing a lifestyle you can't afford to maintain. The Stoic man uses debt as a carefully considered tool, never as a crutch. The ultimate goal of this financial temperance is independence, not necessarily to retire early, but to have the autonomy to make life decisions based on your principles, not your paycheck. It's the freedom to walk away from a toxic job, to support a cause you believe in, or to spend precious time with family without the corrosive fear of financial ruin. This self-mastery over your finances is one of the most concrete and empowering expressions of Stoic virtue, proving that true power isn't about what you can buy, but about what you can choose to live without. This pursuit of a clear, internal compass leads us directly to the 12th hallmark of Stoic development. Your daily actions become increasingly driven by a deep-seated sense of purpose, rather than by fleeting whims or external pressures. You stop drifting and start navigating. This isn't about some grand, world-changing destiny you're trying to fulfill. It's about the quiet, consistent application of a single, powerful idea from ancient Greek philosophy that the Stoics wholeheartedly adopted: arete. This word is often translated as virtue or excellence, but its truest meaning is something closer to living up to your highest potential. It's the act of expressing the very best of what you are capable of in any given situation. For the Stoic man, arete becomes his guiding star, the unwavering standard against which he measures his choices, both monumental and mundane. Think of it like this. Most people live their lives reactively. They take a job because it pays well or because it's what's expected of them. They engage in hobbies and relationships that offer immediate pleasure or social validation. Their path is determined by the currents of circumstance and desire. The purpose-driven man, however, lives proactively. He still has to navigate those same currents, but he does so with a destination in mind. He starts by asking himself the most fundamental Stoic question: what is the best possible version of myself? This best self isn't defined by his job title, his bank account, or his social media following. It's defined by the quality of his character, his integrity, his courage, his justice, his wisdom. Everything else, his career, his relationships, his possessions, are merely the arenas in which he gets to practice and demonstrate that character. This philosophy transforms your approach to work. The reactive man sees his job as a transaction, time and effort in exchange for a paycheck. He works for the weekend, counting down the hours until he can escape. The purpose-driven man, guided by arete, reframes his work entirely. He might be in the exact same role, but his internal motivation is different. He asks, how can I perform this task with excellence today? How can I solve this problem more creatively? How can I be of greater service to my colleagues and clients? How can this challenge help me grow stronger and more capable? His work is no longer just a job, it's his daily training ground for virtue. The paycheck becomes a welcome byproduct of his pursuit of excellence, not the sole reason for it. This shift is incredibly empowering. It means that even if you're in an entry-level position or a role you don't love, you can still find profound meaning in it by focusing on how the character you bring to the task rather than just the what. This same principle applies to your personal life and relationships. A reactive father might parent on autopilot, providing for his children but being mentally absent, distracted by his phone or his worries. A purpose-driven father sees fatherhood as his most important practice of arete. He consciously asks, what does excellence look like as a father right now? Is it patience when my child is struggling with their homework? Is it the courage to have a difficult conversation about values? Is it the presence to put my work away and truly listen to their story? His purpose isn't to create perfect children, but to be the best, most virtuous father he can be. The outcome is secondary to the integrity of the effort. This approach removes a tremendous amount of anxiety because you're only responsible for your own actions and intentions, not for the uncontrollable outcomes. The beautiful paradox of living by Arit is that this focus on the process, on the quality of your effort, almost invariably leads to better external results. The employee who is driven by excellence and service will naturally become more valuable, often leading to promotions and opportunities that the paycheck chaser never sees. The partner who focuses on being virtuous, reliable, and attentive builds a deeper, more resilient relationship than one who is only focused on what they are getting out of it. By making the development of your own character the ultimate goal, you align yourself with a purpose that can never be taken from you. Market crashes can't destroy it. Criticism can't diminish it, failure can't erase it. Your purpose becomes internal, unassailable, and endlessly renewable, providing a source of motivation and meaning that is far more powerful and sustainable than any external reward. You stop living a life of quiet desperation and start building a life of quiet, purposeful excellence. This leads us to the 13th, an incredibly practical sign of your growth. You begin to master the art of respectful assertiveness. This is the golden mean between the two extremes of aggression and passivity, a balance the Stoics would have called a virtue. It's the ability to hold your ground and express your needs, opinions, and boundaries with unwavering clarity and respect, without any need for domination, manipulation, or submission. The aggressive man seeks to win at all costs, trampling the rights and feelings of others. The passive man avoids conflict at all costs, allowing his own rights and needs to be trampled. The Stoic man, however, understands that true strength lies in expressing yourself honestly while fundamentally respecting the dignity of the person you're speaking with. Your goal is not to defeat the other person, but to communicate your truth with integrity and to find a resolution that, ideally, honors the interests of all parties involved. Imagine a high-stakes professional scenario like a salary negotiation. The aggressive approach would be to issue an ultimatum. I need a 20% raise or I walk. This creates immediate defensiveness, puts your boss in a corner, and burns bridges. The passive approach would be to mumble, I was hoping maybe for a bit of a raise this year if that's possible. This communicates a lack of confidence and value, making it easy to dismiss you. The assertively Stoic approach is prepared, principled, and respectful. You would schedule a dedicated meeting and come armed not with demands, but with evidence of your value-specific projects you've excelled in, quantifiable results you've delivered, and the market rate for your role. You would state your case clearly. Based on my contributions to the X and Y projects and the current market data for this role, I believe a salary of Z is a fair reflection of my value to the company. I'm committed to my work here and I'm eager to discuss how we can make this happen. This is not a threat, it's a confident, fact-based presentation of your position. You are respecting both yourself by advocating for your worth and your employer by giving them a rational framework for the discussion. You are perfectly prepared to hear a no or a counter-offer without your ego being shattered because your self-worth isn't tied to the outcome. You advocated with virtue, and that in itself is a success. Now, bring this into a deeply personal context, like setting a boundary with a family member who has a habit of making last-minute, demanding requests that disrupt your schedule. The aggressive response would be to lash out. You always do this, you're so selfish and inconsiderate, figure it out yourself. This attacks their character and escalates the conflict. The passive response would be to sigh internally and capitulate. Oh, "Okay, I guess I can cancel my plans, it's fine." This breeds resentment and teaches them that your time is less valuable than their convenience. The assertively Stoic response is direct, calm, and focused on your boundary, not their flaws. You might say, "I understand you need help with that, but I've already made commitments for that time that I need to honor. I won't be able to help you today. In the future, if you can give me a bit more notice, I'd be happy to see if I'm available." This statement is powerful because it is unemotional and rooted in your own priorities. You are not attacking them, you are simply stating your reality. You are offering a constructive path forward, more notice, while holding the line firmly in the present. "I won't be able to help." This communicates that your time is valuable and that you respect yourself enough to protect it, which in turn teaches others to respect it as well. You are being kind without being a pushover and firm without being cruel. This is the very essence of Stoic assertiveness, a calm, unshakable expression of your truth that requires no anger to be powerful and no apology to be polite. The 14th sign you're walking this path is a fundamental shift in your relationship with knowledge itself. You develop a continuous learning mentality, embracing intellectual humility as a core strength. This is the direct opposite of the rigid, know-it-all attitude that often masquerades as confidence. The Stoics were, first and foremost, students of life. Socrates, a giant upon whose shoulders the Stoics stood, famously declared that the only thing he knew was that he knew nothing. This wasn't false modesty. It was a profound recognition that the universe is vast, our understanding is always incomplete, and the moment we believe we have all the answers is the moment we stop growing. A man cultivating Stoic masculinity doesn't see his beliefs as a fortress to be defended at all costs, but as a working hypothesis to be constantly tested, refined, and updated against the evidence of reality. His core principles, values like integrity, courage, and justice remain his unwavering compass, but his understanding of the world and how to navigate it remains fluid, adaptable, and forever open to revision. This plays out in remarkably practical ways. Consider how you handle a disagreement now. The old, ego-driven pattern might have been to dig in your heels, to listen only for flaws in the other person's argument so you could rebut them, and to see the conversation as a battle to be won. The new Stoic approach is to enter every discussion with a genuine curiosity. You learn to actively listen, not just to respond, but to understand. You might hear a point that challenges your long-held view on a topic, and instead of feeling threatened, you feel intrigued. You might actually say, "That's a perspective I hadn't considered. Can you tell me more about that?" This ability to say, "I don't know," or "I was wrong about that," is not a sign of weakness. It is a demonstration of immense intellectual security. Your self-worth is no longer tied to being right all the time, which liberates you to actually pursue what is true. People will trust your judgment more, not less, because they know you have the integrity to change your mind when presented with better information. This lifelong learning extends far beyond philosophical debates into every facet of your life. You might decide to pick up a completely new practical skill, not for a career move, but for the sheer discipline of being a beginner again. Learning to play a musical instrument, to speak a new language, or to build something with your hands forces you back into a state of humility. You have to be okay with being awkward, with making mistakes, and with not being good at something. This is a powerful antidote to ego. It reminds you that mastery is a process, not a destination, and it rebuilds empathy for anyone else who is learning. Furthermore, you become a voracious and discerning consumer of information. You don't just passively absorb content that confirms your existing biases. You actively seek out opposing viewpoints, classical literature, scientific papers, and the wisdom of history. You understand that to make better decisions in the present, you need the perspective that only the past can provide. You might read the biographies of great historical figures not to idolize them, but to learn from their triumphs and, more importantly, from their critical errors. This continuous pursuit of knowledge isn't an academic exercise, it is the fuel for better judgment. Every book you read, every new skill you practice, and every conversation where you truly listen adds another tool to your mental toolkit, making you more capable, more adaptable, and more resilient in the face of life's endless complexities. The 15th sign you're building this resilient character is a growing focus on what we can call environmental mastery, the deliberate shaping of your physical and digital spaces to actively support your virtues and goals rather than undermine them. This isn't about sterile perfectionism or a rigid obsession with cleanliness. It's a deeply practical application of Stoic principle. The philosophy teaches us to focus on what is within our control, and your immediate environment is one of the most powerful things you can command. A chaotic, cluttered, and distracting space creates constant, low-grade friction against your intentions, making it harder to think clearly, act with discipline, and maintain your peace. By consciously curating your surroundings, you aren't just tidying up, you are engineering external conditions that make internal virtue the path of least resistance. Think of your living space, a sink overflowing with dishes, a floor littered with clothes, and a desk buried under random papers might seem like minor annoyances, but they exert a subtle psychological toll. This visual noise creates a background hum of unease and disorder that subconsciously reinforces a reactive, scattered state of mind. It whispers that things are not under control. The Stoic response is to see the maintenance of your home not as a tedious chore, but as a form of practiced order. The simple act of making your bed first thing in the morning is a small, immediate victory. It's a ritual that establishes order and discipline before the day even begins. Cleaning the kitchen after dinner isn't just about hygiene, it's about honoring your space and preparing for a peaceful, uncluttered morning. Your environment becomes a reflection of your internal state. A calm, ordered, and purposeful space acts as an anchor, a visual and tangible reminder of the clarity and control you are cultivating within yourself. It is far easier to meditate in a clean, quiet room than in a chaotic one. It is easier to focus on writing or reading at a clear desk than at one covered in yesterday's clutter. You are removing external obstacles so you can devote your full energy to the internal ones. This principle of environmental mastery extends with even greater force into the digital world, which is arguably the single greatest source of modern distraction and anxiety. The Stoic man recognizes that his attention is his most precious resource, the very faculty required for judgment, focus, and virtue. He does not leave it vulnerable to the endless assault of notifications, endless scrolling, and algorithmic manipulation designed to hijack his focus. Digital minimalism becomes a non-negotiable practice. This means a ruthless audit of your digital life. It involves turning off nearly all non-essential notifications on your phone and computer, reclaiming your device from a slot machine designed to trigger dopamine hits back into a tool you use with intention. It means curating your social media feeds to include only what is genuinely useful or uplifting, and mercilessly unfollowing accounts that breed comparison, outrage, or mindless consumption. It might involve using website blockers during work hours to protect your focus or designating specific times to check email, rather than leaving the inbox open as a constant source of interruption. This isn't about rejecting technology, it's about mastering it. You are applying the Stoic dichotomy of control directly to your digital life. You cannot control the design of these platforms, but you have complete control over how you engage with them. By creating friction between yourself and distraction, by putting your phone in another room while you work, or by deleting time-wasting apps, you are not being restrictive, you are being free. You are freeing up vast quantities of time and mental bandwidth that can be redirected toward your true priorities: deep work, meaningful conversation, reading, or simply being present with your own thoughts. This control over your digital environment is one of the most impactful forms of modern self-discipline. It ensures that when you choose to act, you are doing so from a place of focused intention, not as a reaction to a ping or a buzz. You are designing a life where your environment is no longer working against you, but is actively aligned with your purpose, creating the calm and order necessary for a mind focused on what is truly essential. You begin to notice a fascinating and powerful development within yourself. Your ability to identify and articulate your internal emotional landscape becomes remarkably precise. Where you might have once simply labeled any difficult feeling as anger or frustration, you now find yourself equipped with a far more nuanced emotional vocabulary. This is the 16th sign of true Stoic growth, and it's a complete game changer for your relationships and self-awareness. The ancient Stoics were not about eliminating emotion, they were about understanding it. A core part of that understanding is the ability to accurately name what you are feeling. You start to realize that the vague, boiling sensation you used to call anger is often something much more specific. Perhaps it's a feeling of humiliation because your competence was questioned in a meeting. Maybe it's a sense of powerlessness stemming from a situation you can't control. Or it could be deep disappointment because an expectation you didn't even realize you had went unfulfilled. This precision is like switching from a blunt club to a surgeon's scalpel. The blunt club of anger only knows how to smash things. The scalpel of precise emotion allows you to make an incision, identify the exact problem, and address it at its source. This expanded vocabulary transforms your internal monologue and your external communication. Internally, instead of just feeling a storm of negativity and reacting to it, you can now have a calm, diagnostic conversation with yourself. You feel a surge of irritation when your partner arrives home late. The old script would have been a generalized frustration that might lead to a snippy comment or a cold shoulder. But with this new skill, you pause and ask, what is this really? Am I irritated because my time was disrespected? Am I actually anxious because I was worried something had happened to them? Or am I feeling neglected because we haven't had much quality time lately? By pinpointing the exact emotion, be it feeling disrespected, anxious, or lonely, you completely change your potential response. You are no longer fighting a vague monster in the fog. You are addressing a clearly identified issue. This self-clarity is the first and most crucial step toward a virtuous response. Externally, this skill revolutionizes your conversations, especially during conflict. It moves discussions from the volatile realm of accusation to the productive realm of shared understanding. Instead of yelling, "You're always so inconsiderate, you make me so angry," which is guaranteed to make the other person defensive, you can use your new language to express your experience without blame. You might say, "When you came home an hour later than you said without texting, I felt anxious. I started imagining something bad had happened, and that was really difficult for me." Or, "I have to admit, I felt a bit hurt when my suggestion wasn't acknowledged in the meeting. It made me feel like my contribution wasn't valued." This kind of communication is radically different. You are not attacking the other person's character. You are simply and accurately reporting your own internal experience. This does two things instantly. First, it is almost impossible to argue with. Someone can't tell you that you didn't feel hurt or anxious. They can only listen to your experience. Second, it invites empathy and collaboration rather than defensiveness. The conversation naturally shifts from you versus me to us versus the problem. The other person is much more likely to understand the impact of their actions and want to find a solution. This emotional precision, born from Stoic self-examination, is one of the most practical and powerful tools for building deeper, more authentic, and more resilient connections with everyone in your life. This ability to communicate with such clarity and precision becomes the very foundation for the 17th sign of your development, mastering the art of boundary setting with compassion. This is where the Stoic virtue of justice meets the practical reality of your daily life. It's the understanding that you have a fundamental duty to protect your time, energy, and focus, not just for your own sake, but so that you can show up as your best, most present self for the people and projects that truly matter. The Stoic man recognizes that saying yes to every request is often a quiet way of saying no to his own priorities and principles. He understands that a lack of boundaries is not kindness. It is a slow form of self-abandonment that ultimately leads to resentment, burnout, and a diminished capacity to be of genuine service to anyone. Setting a boundary, therefore, is not an act of selfishness or aggression. It is an act of profound self-respect and, counterintuitively, an act of respect for the other person as well, because it deals with them honestly. The key to doing this with compassion lies in the formula, a simple yet powerful Stoic framework for your response. It involves 3 parts: validation, declination, and redirection. You start by validating the request or the person making it, which shows you've heard them and respect their needs. Then you clearly and politely decline the specific request. Finally, if appropriate, you can offer a redirection, an alternative that works within your boundaries. This structure allows you to hold your line firmly without making the other person feel dismissed or devalued. For instance, imagine a colleague asks you to take on a significant portion of their project because they've fallen behind, a task that would require you to work through the weekend you had planned with your family. The aggressive response would be, "No way, that's your problem, figure it out." The passive response would be a defeated, resentful, "Okay, I guess I can do it," while silently fuming. The compassionately assertive Stoic response would use the formula, "I understand you're in a tight spot with this deadline, and I appreciate you reaching out for help validation. However, I've made prior commitments this weekend that I need to honor, so I won't be able to take on that part of the project declination. What I could do is quickly show you the framework I used for the last report, which might help you speed up your own work this afternoon." Redirection. This approach is transformative. You have defended your valuable time and your commitment to your family without attacking your colleague. You've even offered a smaller, more manageable form of help that doesn't violate your boundaries. You leave the interaction with your integrity intact and without having created an enemy. The same formula works in your personal life. A friend consistently calls late in the evening to vent about their relationship problems, often keeping you on the phone for over an hour. Instead of eventually blowing up at them or just letting your phone go to voicemail with guilt, you can have a gentle, proactive conversation. "I always want to be there for you to talk things through, and I value our friendship deeply." Validation. "But after 9 p.m., I'm usually winding down for the night with my family, so I won't be able to take those calls." Declination. "If you need to talk, please feel free to text me during the day or early evening, and we can find a time to connect properly." Redirection. This isn't rejection, it's a renegotiation of the terms of your support into a sustainable, respectful format. The compassionate element is crucial. It means you deliver these boundaries not with coldness or irritation, but with a calm, steady kindness that communicates your care for the relationship itself. You understand that the other person's request likely comes from a place of their own need or stress, and you acknowledge that without having to capitulate to it. This practice requires you to disentangle your self-worth from the other person's potential disappointment. The Stoic man knows that another person's emotional reaction to his reasonable boundary is not his to control. He can deliver his message with empathy and clarity, but he cannot mandate how it is received. He is responsible for acting with virtue, not for managing the other person's feelings about it. This releases you from the guilt that often makes boundary setting so difficult. You learn that a temporary moment of someone's disappointment is a far lighter burden to carry than the chronic resentment and exhaustion of constantly overextending yourself. By setting compassionate boundaries, you teach people how to treat you, and you create the space necessary to live a life that is truly your own, guided by your purpose and your principles, not by the endless demands of others. This reframing of adversity is the 18th and perhaps most empowering sign of your transformation. It's the moment you stop seeing obstacles as inconvenient roadblocks and start recognizing them as the very raw material for building an unbreakable character. This isn't about naive positivity or pretending that difficult things aren't difficult. It's about a fundamental shift in perception, a strategic re-evaluation of the challenges life throws your way. The Stoics had a powerful phrase for this, amor fati, which translates to a love of fate. It's the mindset of not just accepting what happens, but embracing it, all of it, as necessary for your development. They believed that within every apparent setback, every piece of bad luck, and every difficult person, there is a hidden opportunity to practice a specific virtue. Your job is not to rage against the obstacle, but to find the handle on it that allows you to use it to your advantage. Think of it like weight training. You don't go to the gym and get angry at the heavy barbell for being heavy. You understand that its very resistance is what makes you stronger. You welcome the weight because you know that struggling against it is the entire point of the exercise. The Stoic applies this exact same logic to the challenges of daily life. That frustrating traffic jam isn't just stolen time, it's an unexpected opportunity to practice patience. It's a forced 10-minute window to listen to an audiobook, to sit with your own thoughts, or to simply practice being calm in a situation you cannot control. The difficult, critical colleague at work is no longer just a source of irritation. They become your personal trainer for the virtue of patience and forbearance. Every interaction with them is a rep, a chance to practice responding with calm professionalism instead of reactive anger. You might even come to feel a strange sense of gratitude for their presence, as they are giving you a chance to strengthen a muscle that would otherwise remain weak. This philosophy finds its ultimate expression in the famous Stoic maxim, "The obstacle is the way." This means the very thing standing in your path doesn't block your path, it becomes the path. History is filled with stunning examples of this principle in action. Thomas Edison's laboratory, containing years of priceless research, burned to the ground in a devastating fire. Watching the flames, he didn't collapse in despair. He famously told his son, "Go get your mother and all her friends. They'll never see a fire like this again." He then got to work rebuilding the very next day, seeing the catastrophe as a chance to start fresh and even improve upon his previous designs. He used the obstacle as the way. The astronaut James Lovell, during the nearly doomed Apollo 13 mission, faced certain death hundreds of thousands of miles from Earth. Instead of panicking, he and his team on the ground famously stated, "Failure is not an option." They treated the endless series of life-threatening malfunctions not as a reason to give up, but as a complex puzzle to be solved. Every problem became a stepping stone to a creative solution. The obstacle, the potential for catastrophic failure, became the way they demonstrated unprecedented courage and ingenuity. You can apply this same transformative thinking to your own life right now. A major professional rejection isn't just a door slamming shut, it's a redirection. It forces you to re-evaluate your skills, to explore other avenues you might not have considered, and often leads you to a better fitting opportunity that wouldn't have been possible otherwise. The end of a significant relationship, as painful as it is, becomes a profound lesson in self-reliance and a chance to rebuild your life on a more authentic foundation, having learned exactly what you do and do not need from a partner. Even a period of illness or injury, while undoubtedly difficult, can become a masterclass in patience and a stark reminder to never take your health for granted. The man who practices amor fati stops asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and starts asking, "What is this trying to teach me? How can this make me stronger? What virtue can I practice here that I've been neglecting?" This shift turns you from a passive victim of circumstance into an active agent of your own growth. You stop waiting for the perfect conditions to be happy and successful, and you start realizing that the imperfect conditions are the only ones that will ever truly forge your character. The 19th sign that you're truly integrating Stoic principles is a profound shift in your relationship with consumption itself, not just what you eat, but everything you ingest through your senses. This is the practice of mindful consumption, a conscious and deliberate approach to the media you watch, the food you eat, and the information you absorb. The Stoic man recognizes that his mind is his most sacred space, and he becomes fiercely protective of what he allows to enter it. He moves from being a passive consumer, pulled by every algorithm and craving, to an active curator of his own mental and physical environment. This isn't about austerity or deprivation. It's about aligning your consumption with your values, choosing inputs that build virtue, clarity, and energy rather than those that drain your attention and scatter your focus. This principle begins with what you put into your body. The Stoic view of food is not about calorie counting or achieving a certain physique for vanity's sake. It's about seeing food first and foremost as fuel for your purpose. You start to ask a simple but transformative question before every meal. Will this nourish my body and mind, giving me stable energy and clarity, or will it make me sluggish, foggy, and irritable? This shifts the entire paradigm from one of pleasure seeking to one of purposeful fueling. Imagine you have a critical afternoon of work ahead, requiring deep focus and patience. The old you might grab a quick, sugary lunch and a large coffee, seeking an immediate burst of energy. The Stoic you understands that this will lead to a predictable crash, leaving you impatient and distracted exactly when you need to be at your best. Instead, you consciously choose a balanced meal with protein, healthy fats, and complex carbohydrates, food that provides sustained energy without the roller coaster. This is not a diet, it's a form of practical self-respect. You are maintaining your primary instrument so it can perform at its peak when called upon. It's the application of wisdom to your plate, understanding that your physical state directly dictates your mental and emotional capacity. This same philosophy of intentionality extends with even greater force to your media diet. In an age of infinite content, your attention is the most valuable commodity, and every platform is designed to capture as much of it as possible. The Stoic man conducts a ruthless audit of his media consumption. He asks, is this content informing me, inspiring me, or teaching me something valuable? Or is it merely entertaining me to death, stoking my anxiety, or fueling my biases? This leads to conscious unsubscribe decisions. You might realize that following certain news channels that thrive on outrage and constant crisis reporting only fills you with a sense of helpless anger about events you cannot control. Following this realization, you choose to disengage, not out of ignorance, but out of wisdom. You recognize that this type of consumption violates the Stoic dichotomy of control and actively harms your peace of mind. Instead, you might choose to get your news from a single, balanced source at a designated time of day, rather than having a constant drip feed of crisis throughout your day. Your entertainment choices evolve as well. You might find yourself drawn to documentaries, historical dramas, or biographies that offer lessons in human nature and resilience, rather than mindless reality shows that often celebrate vanity and conflict. You start a book on philosophy or history instead of scrolling through social media before bed, understanding that the former enriches your mind while the latter often only fractures your attention and invites unhealthy comparison. This doesn't mean you never watch anything purely for fun. It means you do it intentionally as a conscious choice to relax rather than as a default, passive activity you fall into for hours without realizing it. You become the gatekeeper of your own mind, and you start to feel the tangible effects: less anxiety, a longer attention span, more original thoughts, and a deeper sense of calm. Your media consumption stops being a source of distraction and starts becoming a source of strength. Ultimately, this practice of mindful consumption is about reclaiming your most finite resource, your time, and your mental focus. Every hour spent watching something that drains you is an hour not spent reading, creating, connecting with loved ones, or working towards your goals. The Stoic understands that time is the one thing you can never get back, and he treats it with the reverence it deserves. By consuming deliberately, you are making a powerful statement about what you value. You are voting with your attention for a life of purpose over a life of passive consumption. You are ensuring that the things you take in, whether through your mouth or your eyes and ears, are working for you, building you up, and equipping you to live a more virtuous and effective life, rather than working against you, pulling you into distraction, anxiety, and mindless impulse. This conscious curation creates a life that is not just lived but deliberately designed. The 20th sign you're embodying Stoic masculinity is perhaps the most profound shift in perspective of all. You begin to operate with a deep and abiding sense of legacy consciousness. This goes far beyond simply wanting to be remembered fondly. It's a fundamental reorientation of your decision-making process to include the long-term consequences of your actions, often far beyond your own lifetime. The Stoic man starts to see himself not as an isolated individual living for the moment, but as a vital link in a chain that stretches from the distant past into the far future. His daily choices are filtered through a new question: what will be the ripple effects of this action? Am I building something or depleting something? Am I making things easier or more difficult for those who come after me? This mindset moves you from a life of consumption to a life of contribution, where your ultimate measure of success is not what you acquired for yourself, but what you were able to add to the world for the benefit of others. This plays out in both monumental and seemingly minor ways. On a grand scale, it might influence your career path. Instead of chasing the highest-paying job regardless of its societal impact, you might feel drawn to work that solves real problems, builds sustainable systems, or creates opportunities for others. You might choose to start a business not just for profit, but to create a company culture of integrity and respect that becomes a model for others, or to offer a product or service that genuinely improves people's lives. Your definition of wealth expands to include the health of your community, the stability of your family, and the positive mark you leave on your industry. Even if your current role feels small, the legacy-conscious man looks for ways to do it with excellence and mentorship, knowing that how he performs his duties sets a standard and paves the way for those who will follow. This consciousness becomes incredibly tangible in your personal life and relationships. The way you parent transforms. You're no longer just managing behavior day to day. You are consciously trying to instill virtues, resilience, kindness, curiosity, responsibility in your children. You understand that your words and actions are the primary model they have for what it means to be an adult. The way you handle conflict with your partner, the way you speak about your work, the way you treat strangers, all of it is being absorbed and will likely be replicated in some form in the next generation. This isn't a pressure to be perfect, but an awareness that invites you to be more intentional. You might find yourself having conversations with your children about Stoic principles not as abstract philosophy, but as practical tools for life, hoping to equip them with a framework for resilience that will serve them long after you're gone. This legacy mindset also reshapes your relationship with the material world. The Stoic concept of not being entitled to the fruits of the earth, but merely being their temporary steward, becomes a lived reality. You might make more sustainable choices, repairing items instead of replacing them, reducing waste, supporting local producers, not out of a sense of political obligation, but from a deep-seated understanding that the planet's resources are a loan from future generations, not an inheritance from the past to be squandered. Your financial planning shifts from "how much do I need to retire comfortably" to "how can I structure my resources to provide security and opportunity for my family and perhaps even my community after I'm gone." This could mean setting up educational funds for your children or grandchildren, leaving a debt-free estate, or planning for charitable giving that will continue to have an impact. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, despite his immense power, constantly reflected on the briefness of life and the importance of acting in accordance with nature and reason for the benefit of the whole. He saw his role not as a chance for self-indulgence, but as a duty to leave the empire and its people better than he found them. He wrote his private thoughts not for publication, but as a moral compass to ensure his actions were aligned with a legacy of virtue, not tyranny. In our modern context, you don't need to be an emperor to think this way. The local business owner who trains his apprentices with exceptional care, the teacher who stays late to mentor a struggling student, the father who models unwavering integrity in his small daily actions, all are building a legacy that ripples outward in ways they may never fully see. This shift to legacy consciousness is the ultimate expression of Stoic virtue because it fully transcends the ego. Your life is no longer just about you. It becomes about your duty to the human community, your respect for those who came before, and your responsibility to those who are yet to come. It provides a profound and unshakable sense of meaning, grounding every single choice you make in something far larger and more enduring than yourself. The 21st unmistakable sign of your development is a complete transformation in how you handle conflict. You no longer approach disagreements as battles to be won or threats to your ego, but as invaluable opportunities to practice the core Stoic virtues of justice and wisdom. The goal shifts dramatically from proving yourself right to finding what is right for the situation. This isn't about becoming a pushover or avoiding healthy debate. It's about engaging in dispute with a calibrated sense of purpose, where the quality of the resolution matters infinitely more than the satisfaction of your pride. You understand that a conflict poorly handled creates lasting damage and lingering resentment, while a conflict navigated with principle forges deeper trust and mutual respect. This new approach is rooted in a critical mindset shift you've internalized, the separation of the person from the problem. The Stoic recognizes that in most disagreements, the other individual is not a villain to be defeated. They are simply another person with their own flawed perceptions, unmet needs, and personal history who sees the situation differently. Your job is not to attack their character, but to understand their perspective and collaborate on solving the shared problem. Imagine a heated debate with your partner about finances. The non-Stoic reaction is to make it personal. You're so irresponsible with money, you never think about the future. This is an attack that guarantees defensiveness. The Stoic reframe is to focus on the shared issue. It seems like we have different priorities for our budget this month. Your focus is on immediate needs for the house, and mine is on saving for the vacation. How can we structure this to meet both our needs? This simple linguistic pivot from you statements to we statements transforms the entire dynamic from a me versus you fight into an us versus the problem collaboration. Your communication techniques become far more deliberate and effective. You actively practice what the Stoics call the discipline of assent, pausing before you speak to ensure your words are true, necessary, and kind. This means you learn to listen not to rebut, but to truly understand. You ask clarifying questions like, so if I'm hearing you correctly, your main concern is that we won't have a contingency fund if the car breaks down. This paraphrasing does two things. It ensures you actually understand their point, and it makes the other person feel heard, which immediately lowers the emotional temperature of the conversation. You also become adept at finding and stating common ground early on. You might say, I think we can both agree that we want what's financially best for our family's security and happiness. We're just disagreeing on the best path to get there right now. Establishing this shared foundation makes finding a compromise feel like a shared victory rather than a personal concession. Perhaps the most powerful technique you adopt is the deliberate use of a tactical pause. When you feel the heat of anger or frustration rising, that primal urge to lash out with a cutting remark, you have trained yourself to step back. This might be as simple as taking a long, slow breath before responding, or it might mean saying, "I want to give this the thought it deserves. Can we take 10 minutes and reconvene?" This pause is not a sign of weakness. It is the ultimate display of strength under control. It is the application of the Stoic divide between impulse and action. In that space, you give your rational mind, your hegemonicon, a chance to override your emotional amygdala. You can ask yourself the Stoic questions. What would a wise person do here? What is the most just outcome for everyone involved? Will this comment I want to make help solve the problem or just hurt the other person? This moment of reflection is what separates a reactive man from a principled one. The ultimate test and triumph of this skill is in your ability to apologize with genuine sincerity when you are in the wrong. The fragile ego sees an apology as a loss of status. The Stoic sees it as a win for integrity and wisdom. You understand that clinging to a mistake you know you've made is a far greater failure than making the mistake in the first place. A true Stoic apology is specific, takes full responsibility without excuses, and focuses on the impact of your actions, not your intentions. It sounds like, "I was wrong to dismiss your idea in the meeting earlier. I didn't give it a fair hearing, and that was disrespectful to you and your effort. It undermined your contribution, and I will make a point to address that with the team tomorrow." This kind of apology requires immense courage and self-awareness, but it has the power to repair trust instantly and demonstrates a level of character that most people rarely encounter. You stop keeping score of who owes whom an apology and focus instead on the health of the relationship and the integrity of your own conduct, understanding that a peaceful resolution built on mutual respect is the only victory that truly matters. The 22nd sign that Stoic principles are taking root in your life is a profound and practical shift in your relationship with time itself. You begin to view each day not as an infinite resource to be carelessly spent, but as a precious and non-renewable gift. This isn't about a frantic, anxious hustle to cram in as much activity as possible. It's a calm, deliberate discernment that helps you separate what is truly essential from what is merely noisy distraction. At the heart of this transformation is the ancient Stoic practice of memento mori, the remembrance of death. While this might sound dark or morbid to the modern ear, for the Stoic, it was the ultimate tool for creating a life of vibrant purpose and clarity. It's not about dwelling on the end, but about using the awareness of life's finitude to brilliantly illuminate its value. Remembering that your time is limited is the most powerful motivator to stop wasting it on things that do not matter. Think of it as the philosophical equivalent of a deadline. Imagine you have a project with no due date. It's easy to procrastinate, to get sidetracked by minor details, to lack a sense of urgency. Now imagine you're told the project must be completed by 5 p.m. today. Instantly, your focus sharpens, your priorities become crystal clear. You instinctively ignore distractions and channel all your energy into the core task. Memento mori applies this same clarifying pressure to your entire life. It is the ultimate deadline that makes you ask, if I knew my time was limited, would I be doing what I'm doing right now? Would I be having this argument? Would I be scrolling mindlessly through this feed? Would I be putting off that important conversation? This practice doesn't lead to fear, it leads to freedom. It liberates you from the tyranny of trivialities and forces you to confront what you truly want your life to be about. This awareness manifests in beautifully practical ways. You might find yourself becoming more present in your interactions. Instead of half listening to your child tell a story while simultaneously checking your phone, you put the device away, get down on their level, and truly listen. The thought, conscious or not, is that this moment is fleeting and will never come again. You choose to be fully there for it. This same principle applies to your weekly planning. You might sit down each Sunday and with the memento mori lens assess your calendar. You see a dinner with old friends and recognize it as a vital investment in meaningful connection. You see a 2-hour block earmarked for a pointless meeting, and you find a way to delegate, decline, or drastically shorten it. You protect your time for deep work that aligns with your purpose and for restorative solitude that recharge your spirit. You become a ruthless editor of your own schedule, cutting out the activities that are merely busy to make space for the ones that are truly alive. The Stoics were masters of this practice. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius began a passage in his private journal with the stark command, "You could leave life right now." He wasn't being dramatic, he was centering himself. He followed it by asking himself how that knowledge should guide his actions, concluding that he must ensure his every current thought, word, and deed were worthy of a rational being, free from hypocrisy, selfishness, and discontent. Seneca, in his letters, constantly railed against the way people squander their lives as if they had an endless supply of days. He wrote that we are often frugal with our money and our property, but reckless with our time, the one thing we can never regain. He observed that we are not given a short life, but we make it short by wasting it. The practice of memento mori was their antidote to this waste. It was a daily meditation to snap themselves out of complacency and into purposeful action. In our modern world, this philosophy is the ultimate antidote to the fear of missing out. When you are clear on what matters most to you, your family, your character, your core projects, the endless noise of what everyone else is doing loses its power over you. You don't need to attend every social event, follow every trend, or have an opinion on every viral controversy. Your awareness of time's value makes you selectively ignorant, willingly bypassing the trivial many to focus on the essential few. This is not a life of grim austerity, it is a life of rich intention. It means saying no to a casual after-work drink you don't enjoy so you can say a full-hearted yes to reading bedtime stories to your kids. It means turning down a lucrative project that conflicts with your values to free up time for a passion project that has no payday but fills you with purpose. The man who remembers his mortality stops postponing his life. He doesn't wait for retirement to travel, for a special occasion to express love, or for the perfect conditions to start something important. He understands that the perfect time is a myth and that the only time he is ever guaranteed is this present moment. He acts accordingly, filling his days with the things that make him feel most human, most connected, and most alive. This service orientation is the 23rd profound marker of your growth, a natural extension of the internal stability you've cultivated. Stoic masculinity is not a solitary pursuit of personal perfection. It's a philosophy meant to be lived in the world for the betterment of the world. When your sense of security and self-worth is no longer dependent on external validation, you find yourself with a surplus of energy and resources that you can now redirect outward. This isn't about grand, heroic gestures. It's a quiet, consistent commitment to contributing to your community and helping others, driven by a sense of duty rather than a desire for recognition or reward. The Stoics called this ideal cosmopolitanism, the profound understanding that you are a citizen of the world, part of the vast, interconnected human community. Your well-being is inextricably linked to the well-being of those around you. The ancient Stoics, from Zeno to Marcus Aurelius, fiercely advocated for this worldview. They argued that because we are rational beings capable of cooperation, we have a natural duty to contribute to the common good. Marcus Aurelius, despite the immense burden of leading an empire, constantly reminded himself in his private writings that he was born for community and that his actions should benefit his fellow human beings. He saw his role not as a privilege for personal gain, but as a responsibility to serve. This philosophy transforms your perspective on your place in the world. You start to see the man struggling with heavy groceries not as a stranger, but as a fellow citizen you can assist. You see a local community project not as someone else's problem, but as an opportunity to lend your skills. Your circle of concern expands beyond your immediate family and friends to include your neighbors, your city, and ultimately the broader human family. This shift plays out in beautifully practical, everyday ways. It might mean you finally sign up to volunteer at that local food bank you've been meaning to support, not to post about it on social media, but simply because there is a need and you have the capacity to help. It could be the decision to mentor a younger colleague at work, taking time out of your busy schedule to offer guidance and support, not because it's in your job description, but because you remember what it was like to be starting out and you want to smooth their path. Perhaps it's the simple act of shoveling the sidewalk for an elderly neighbor after a snowstorm without waiting to be asked, or using your professional expertise to help a local nonprofit solve a problem pro bono. These actions are not done with an expectation of thanks or reciprocation. They are done because they are right. The act of giving itself becomes its own reward, reinforcing your sense of purpose and connection. The beauty of this service-oriented mindset is how it positively reinforces your own Stoic practice. When you help others without attachment to the outcome, you are actively practicing the dichotomy of control. You control your effort and your intention, but you cannot control whether your help is received perfectly or appreciated. This is a powerful test of your equanimity. When you serve your community, you are constantly exposed to different people and challenging situations, which provides endless opportunities to practice patience, understanding, and the suspension of judgment. You might be serving a meal to someone who is rude or ungrateful. Your Stoic training allows you to respond with compassion rather than irritation, understanding that their behavior likely stems from their own pain and struggle. Service becomes the ultimate training ground for your virtue, sandpaper for the ego, and a constant, humbling reminder of our shared humanity. It grounds you, prevents the inward turn of philosophy from becoming selfishness, and ensures that the strength you build is used not for dominance but for the upliftment of others. The 24th sign, and one that reveals the true depth of your character, is an unwavering commitment to integrity in the smallest of things. This is where Stoic philosophy moves from the theoretical to the tangible, proving that a man's honor isn't forged in a single grand gesture, but is instead the sum total of 1,000 seemingly insignificant choices made throughout the day when he believes no one is watching. The Stoic understands that there is no such thing as a minor lapse of integrity. Every action, no matter how small, is a vote for the kind of man you are becoming. It is the consistent alignment of your minute-by-minute behavior with your deepest values, creating a life of seamless authenticity where your public persona and private conduct are indistinguishable. Think of it as building a wall brick by brick. Each small act of honesty, each kept promise to yourself, each moment where you choose the right thing over the easy thing is another brick laid squarely and firmly in place. A single brick might not seem like much, but the cumulative effect is a formidable structure of character that can withstand any storm. Conversely, a single brick taken away, a harmless white lie, a victimless shortcut, a broken promise you rationalize as too small to matter, weakens the entire structure. The Stoic man is the meticulous bricklayer of his own soul, understanding that the integrity of the whole is entirely dependent on the integrity of every single part. He knows that the man who will cheat on his taxes is the same man who, under different pressures, might cheat on his wife or his business partners. The compromise begins not with a monumental moral failure, but with a tiny, almost imperceptible crack. This principle manifests in countless everyday scenarios. It's returning the extra change a cashier accidentally gave you, not because the amount matters, but because your honesty isn't for sale at any price. It's following through on your commitment to go for a run even though it's raining and you're tired, because the promise you make to yourself is the most important promise you will ever keep. It's refusing to participate in gossip about a coworker, even when the temptation to bond over shared criticism is strong, because you refuse to build connection at the expense of another's dignity. It's taking full responsibility for a mistake you made on a project, even though you could easily blame a vague procedural error because you value truth over convenience. These are not dramatic actions, they are quiet, personal victories that go largely unnoticed by the world, but each one reinforces the neural pathways of integrity, making it easier to choose the virtuous path the next time. The profound impact of this practice is that it builds what can only be called effortless trustworthiness. When you practice integrity in small things, you never have to worry about keeping your stories straight or remembering which version of the truth you told to which person. Your life becomes simple, coherent, and free from the low-grade anxiety that comes with a fractured sense of self. People may not be able to articulate why, but they will sense this rock-solid consistency in you. They will feel an undeniable certainty that your word is your bond, that you are the same person in the dark as you are in the light. This reliability becomes your signature, making you a sought-after partner in business, a trusted friend in times of crisis, and a pillar of calm certainty in a world often filled with ambiguity and shifting allegiances. Your character, built painstakingly through a lifetime of minor choices, becomes your most valuable asset. And now we arrive at the final, and perhaps most beautiful, sign of true Stoic masculinity. You discover a profound and abiding joy in simple pleasures. This is not a form of settling or a lack of ambition. It is the ultimate refinement of your ability to find happiness from within, independent of external circumstances. It's the quiet realization that the most valuable things in life are not the loudest or the most expensive. A meaningful conversation with an old friend, the warmth of the sun on your skin during a quiet walk, the taste of a home-cooked meal made with care. These ordinary moments become extraordinary sources of contentment when you are fully present for them. The constant, frantic chase for the next big thrill, the next purchase, the next milestone begins to fade. You realize that happiness wasn't a destination you were rushing toward. It was a manner of traveling you had been overlooking all along. This ability stems directly from the Stoic practice of premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of loss we discussed earlier. By regularly and vividly imagining life without these simple gifts, you perform a sort of alchemy on your perception. The coffee you drink while reading the news in the morning is no longer just a routine. It's a moment of peace and comfort you consciously appreciate because you've imagined a world where it's gone. The sound of your family laughing in another room transforms from background noise into a symphony you actively stop to listen to, cherishing the fragile, beautiful reality of it. The Stoics called this the art of subtraction. They believed that to truly value something, you must periodically contemplate its absence. This practice doesn't create a sense of fear or lack. It generates an overwhelming sense of gratitude and presence for what is right in front of you right now. Consider the modern obsession with extravagant experiences, the lavish vacations, the expensive dinners, the relentless pursuit of novelty that is often showcased on social media. There's nothing inherently wrong with these things, but when they become the primary source from which we expect to derive happiness, we set ourselves up for a cycle of dissatisfaction. The high of the experience inevitably fades, leaving us craving the next, even bigger hit. The man cultivating Stoic joy breaks this cycle. He can have a truly fantastic time at an expensive concert, but he derives an equal, if not deeper, sense of satisfaction from sitting on his back porch with a cup of tea, listening to the birds and watching the sunset. His happiness is no longer tied to the price tag or the exclusivity of an event. It is tied to the quality of his attention and the depth of his appreciation. He understands that a 5-star meal eaten while distracted by your phone is a less nourishing experience than a simple sandwich eaten with your full attention and gratitude. This shift brings with it an incredible sense of freedom and resilience. You are no longer a hostage to fortune, waiting for life to deliver perfect conditions to be happy. If your big vacation gets cancelled, your happiness isn't cancelled with it. You can find wonder in exploring a local park you've never fully noticed. If you can't afford the latest gadget, you feel no sense of deprivation because your contentment is built on a foundation that money can't buy. This isn't about lowering your standards, it's about raising your awareness. It's about recognizing that the ability to enjoy a simple walk, a good book, or a shared silence is a skill, one that requires practice and presence, but one that pays infinite dividends. It makes you a more enjoyable person to be around, as you radiate a calm appreciation for life as it is, rather than a restless energy for life as it could be. You become a source of peace and stability, demonstrating that true wealth isn't about having everything you want, but about deeply wanting everything you have. This deep, unshakable joy found in the simple and the ordinary is the ultimate hallmark of a man who has mastered himself, for he has discovered that the entire world is filled with wonder if only he has the eyes to see it. And so we arrive here at the end of our exploration, having journeyed through 25 distinct signs that you are quietly, steadily building a foundation of true Stoic masculinity. From that initial, crucial pause between a trigger and your response, to the profound sense of emotional equanimity that follows from the practical acceptance of what you cannot change, to the disciplined morning ritual that sets your day with intention, from voluntarily seeking discomfort to strengthen your resilience, to responding mindfully instead of reacting impulsively. We've seen how your priorities shift from fleeting pleasure to honoring your duties, how a deep and genuine gratitude reframes your entire world, and how a clear hierarchy of core values becomes the unwavering compass for every decision you make. This path leads you to find comfort in your own solitude, to see physical discipline as essential training for the mind, and to practice financial temperance that builds freedom rather than funding vanity. Your life becomes driven by a purpose defined by Arit, living up to your highest potential, and you learn to communicate with respectful assertiveness and compassionate boundaries. A continuous learning mentality keeps you humble and growing, while the conscious mastery of your environment removes distractions and supports your focus. You develop a precise emotional vocabulary that transforms your relationships, and you learn to see every obstacle not as a roadblock, but as the very way forward itself. Through mindful consumption, you protect your mind, and with a legacy consciousness, you ensure your actions ripple positively into the future. You handle conflict with the goal of finding what is right, not who is right, and you develop a profound reverence for your time, understanding its finite preciousness. Your strength finds its highest expression in service to your community, and your character is solidified through unwavering integrity in the smallest of things. And finally, you discover that the ultimate reward for all this inner work is a profound and abiding joy found in life's simplest, most readily available pleasures. Remember, this is not a checklist to be completed or a finish line to be crossed. This is a lifelong practice, a continuous journey of becoming. You will not exhibit all 25 signs perfectly every single day. That is not the point. The point is to recognize the direction of your travel. Look back at this list not as a test, but as a map. Which of these signs do you already see flourishing in your life? Celebrate that progress. Which ones feel distant or challenging? See them not as failures, but as your personal training ground for the months ahead. This is the beautiful, never-ending work of building a character that is resilient, virtuous, and unshakably your own. Your journey is unique, and we would all benefit from hearing about it. In the comments below, share one Stoic practice that has made the most significant difference in your life. What is one sign from this list that you are actively working on? By sharing our experiences, we build a community of practice, learning from and supporting each other. And if you're looking to deepen your understanding, there is a wealth of wisdom waiting for you. The original texts, Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, Seneca's Letters from a Stoic, and Epictetus's Discourses, are the foundational wells of this philosophy. For modern interpretations and practical guides, consider the works of authors like Ryan Holiday, whose The Daily Stoic provides a brilliant entry point. This is just the beginning. The path of Stoicism is a deep and rewarding one, offering timeless tools for navigating the complexities of modern life with courage, wisdom, and peace. Thank you for walking this part of the path with me.